Hey all, it's been a while. If you haven't been wondering where I've been, you can skip here to get right to the video. Otherwise, let me explain pretty briefly. Past few months I've been putting a lot of effort into making my first published game, Power Crisis, and I'm happy to say it's going really well. I'm hoping by the end of April the demo will be on Steam for you all to try. In the meantime, I might be posting some teaser videos for it here and there, so be on the lookout. I'm really excited for this, and I hope I can get you all excited for it too. But right now I don't have too much to share about it. Anyways, today I returned to the As It Was series to talk about Help Wanted, released in early 2019, and the first entry in what I call the Steel Wool Saga. But since the Steel Wool Saga is ongoing, I'm calling this the As It Is series, since this story could be retroactively added to in the future. The lore in this game is pretty brief, but also pretty important for what's to come, so let's get right into it. Help Wanted starts with our player going down a track as the voice of hand unit fills in the gaps of what's happened since Pizzeria Simulator. Only he tells us Fazbear's narrative of what's happened. Long story short, according to Fazbear, a rogue indie developer made games about their brand, spreading rumors about horrible tragedies with little to no truth contained within them. A lot of people see this as an indicator that the timeline is being reset and the previous games have been retconned, given the image for the rogue indie developer is a picture of Scott Cawthon. Hold on to this idea for now, as later on I'm going to refute this claim. Going forward, the game itself contains most of its lore and secret tapes hidden around the different levels of the game. There are some possible lore bits in these games, like a hint to the Order of the MCI, or more evidence to the Molten MCI theory, but given those are details relating to the timeline of the Scott saga, I'm not going to bother talking about them for too long, given, in my mind, that story is pretty much wrapped up as it is. That aside, in these 16 tapes were given a fairly cohesive story on what's going on in this game, just a little bit out of order. Help Wanted is an in-universe game made by Fazbear Entertainment, supposedly made to shed light on the rumors spread by the aforementioned indie developer. The main subject of these tapes is a woman who people tend to just call the Tape Girl, who is working as a tester for the company working on the game. She sees that there's something more malicious going on with Fazbear though. In tape 13, the tape thought to be the first in the ordering, she mentions that Fazbear accidentally shares emails with them, which contained an agreement between Fazbear and that supposedly rogue indie developer. From this, she concludes that this whole game is an elaborate cover-up. People really seem to get lost in the weeds with the whole indie developer thing, so let me illustrate the situation in a way that, at least to me, makes the most sense. As she says, Fazbear Entertainment hired the indie developer to make games about Fazbear's past to conceal what happened at their restaurants. This developer goes through with the deal, but likely gets too close to the truth with his games. This is what leads Fazbear to go on a smear campaign against the developer and to make the VR game that Help Wanted takes place in. In the words of Past Me, if Fazbear hired the developer to make the games based on real events to make light of them, the fact that they go on to call him a lunatic and that his games are all lies should tell us one thing: he got too close to the truth. So, in conclusion, this seems definitive to me that at least the important parts of Scott's games are still canon to the series. There were still murders at the pizzerias, multiple fires to try to end the cycle of trauma, and so on. This does mean that, if anything, maybe the designs of the characters as we see in those games aren't entirely canon anymore. That's neither here nor there. Moving on from that, the story here becomes pretty clear. Tape Girl describes a series of events of her co-worker, Jeremy, falling into a state of constant distress while working on the game. The company tries to fire him, likely because he saw something he's not supposed to see, before eventually cutting off his own face with a paper slicer. Now it is worth mentioning that she specifically mentions that upon stumbling upon the scene, she saw something that just looked like a Halloween mask laying on the floor. While it's well assumed that this is just the face that he cut off, and that's what I still believe, keep this description in mind going forward, as you'll find that masks are an important plot detail in this new saga. Also, I just want to get out of the way now. You could make an argument that he survived this event, but I think it's pretty obvious he probably died after cutting off his face. Moving on, Tape Girl explains that one night, the office is presumably ransacked by their client, with drawers being emptied out. She goes on to mention that this company sent them old circuit boards and other junk to scan in to help with making the game, and they presumably now reclaimed those objects. Upon scanning in some of the code on the boards, things did begin to change, and then a figure began appearing, as reported by the late Jeremy. Soon enough, the tape girl began seeing this figure herself. She says it doesn't act like any other character in the game, choosing to stand around, staring into the windows intently, like it was actually just watching her. Moving on, the game is projected to be pushed onto a new developer, and in the meantime she makes it her goal to isolate the anomaly that she's been witnessing, and take whatever notes of it that she can. There comes a day where she can no longer find the anomaly, and upon further investigation, she discovers that it's attached itself to the very logs we've been collecting this whole time. She tries to delete them, but finds herself unable to, her protection over these logs and the files being a little bit too protective. She goes on to try to fragment these files, to split the anomaly up into pieces to weaken it. This is swiftly followed by 2 final tapes, which are pretty odd. I'll go ahead and play them in their entirety now.
Hello. You don't know me. I had created a series of logs for you documenting the troubled development of this VR game that you're now testing, in hopes that you, whoever you are, and whatever team you're with, will abandon development. Now I fear that those logs are being used as a Trojan horse. If you're unable to abandon development, hide all traces of these logs that I've created. I fear that finding them and reassembling them will also reassemble the very thing I've tried so desperately to destroy. There is a way to kill it. It wants to escape through someone plugged into this game. That's you now. You have to let it begin the process of leaving through you, then use the disconnect switch that I've embedded by the main stage. Let it approach you. Let it begin to merge with you. Play the music and flip the switch. That will cause a hard restart of the game and flush the memory, effectively killing it. I hope. I don't know when it will come for you.
As shown, the first tape starts with a complete tonal shift, with Tape Girl talking pretty suspiciously. She recaps the purpose of the logs that we've already collected, and explains that we need to hide them to keep this anomaly from reforming. In the second tape, she gives us instruction to let the anomaly begin merging with us before playing music and flipping a switch. I think this can be interpreted a couple of ways. She's really having an Oppenheimer moment and has regrets of putting us down this path, or 2, this isn't the Tape Girl anymore and the instructions we're being given are beneficial to this anomaly. It's at this point I should directly mention what she's actually talking about. The character of Glitchtrap, who grows closer and closer to us as we collect more tapes. If you fail to follow her instructions as Glitchtrap merges with you, your perspective switches to Glitchtrap himself, implying that he did in fact merge his mind with you. But if you do follow her instructions, something bizarre happens. Your perspective shifts to what looks like the inside of a prison cell, before Glitchtrap opens the door, shushes you, and fades into the darkness. Returning to the lobby, Glitchtrap is reduced to a little plushie. With this in mind, let me explain why I think Tape Girl isn't talking to us in tapes 15 and 16. Sure, the instructions she gives could arguably be seen as helpful, given they do lead to Glitchtrap being reduced to a plushie. Then in that case, what about the whole prison cell scene? I believe both of these endings are bad endings, just bad in different ways. By letting Glitchtrap fully take you over, I believe you're put into a similar position as Jeremy. From what it sounds like, Glitchtrap successfully merged with him, and led to him going insane, being under constant stress, and ultimately cutting his own face off. When you follow the alleged Tape Girl's instructions though, I don't believe you actually flush the anomaly from the memory as she suggests will happen. What you do actually end up doing is suppressing your own soul from memory. This scenery of a person in Glitchtrap's prison comes back in future games, but the basic imagery of it running off with us in prison gives me the impression we've just given it the controls to our entire mind. So unlike Jeremy, there won't be a conflict of interest. So I guess I also need to answer the question of those circuit boards and Glitchtrap himself. When the game first came out, people were running with the assumption that in this pile of junk was Scraptrap's scorched remains. Scanning them in, digitize the solar agony of William Afton, letting him loose on the world. But remember what I said about believing that Tape Girl is no longer talking to us as of tapes 15 and 16? Let me play Glitchtrap's voice for you really quick. Sounds weird, right? Well, let me speed it up really quick.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Sound familiar? It should, because that's the exact phrase Tape Girl says to us in her very first tape.
Hello? Can you hear me?
So what? Maybe in his new digitized form, William Afton can now copy voices of people and is doing so to release himself from the game into somebody's mind. Well, back then that was the best explanation we had. That was until the Tales from the Pizzaplex books and FNaF for Ruin introduced us to a new character, the Mimic. Now, looking ahead like this is normally grounds for cheating in the series, but I do think it's important to get out of the way now. Again, this As It Is series will operate a little bit differently than my As It Was series did. That series operated on the idea of looking back on the games retroactively with the games that came after it in mind, to try to make a better estimate of what the story was at the time. The Steel Wool saga is still going though, and as such the series doesn't have the same hindsight bias to work with. So the theory base of FNaF is now split up into two major camps. One suggests that the original theory was correct and that the circuit boards scanned in were in fact Afton's. The other camp believes that all along, the circuit boards belong to this new Mimic character. Not only is it mimicking the appearance of a model that appeared in the VR game, but furthermore, it's mimicking the voice of someone who worked on the game. It wants out of its digital prison, and we're the escape pod. I personally go with the belief that the Mimic was always the intention, as I believe a lot of Glitchtrap's characteristics are better applicable to the Mimic than Afton. So for the timeline, that's what I'll be going with. If you don't like that, well, I guess replace every following mention of the Mimic with Afton, and you'll have a story more suited towards your beliefs. With all that out of the way, I can move on to the oh wait, there's DLC for this game. Like the base game, there's very little lore substance in these games, more so being fun minigames than anything. There's a mention of a Fall Fest of 83, which will continue to be referenced going forward in the series, but other than that, there's only one thing of obvious note in these extra games. In the level Corn Maze, if you manage to collect all 4 colored keys, find a secret 5th key, and return to the center of the maze, you'll come across a room with a Halloween mask lying in it. Putting it on, our breathing starts rapid before gradually slowing down. This mask will then appear in the main lobby. Wearing it while holding the Glitchtrap plushie leads to the following conversation.
Yes, I hear you. I know. No. There's no miscommunication. I understand. Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it. No one suspects anything. Don't worry. I'll be ready. And I won't let you down. It will be fun.
I think the story here is pretty cut and dried. After the events of the main game, and becoming a victim of Glitchtrap's infiltration, our character becomes a follower of it, either out of fear or genuine intrigue. I'm leaning towards the former though, as this voice is referred to as reluctant follower elsewhere. This follower will do the entity's bidding, presumably having selected one of something, and also making something herself, presumably the mask. Oh, and there was also an update that had a sneak peek of the next game's security breach, with the large building being built just over the horizon. But anyways, now with everything covered, we can put together a pretty coherent timeline. Sometime after the fire in Pizza Simulator, Fazbear Entertainment recuperates somehow and hires an indie developer to make light of the events that took place years ago, to hopefully rebuild the company. This indie developer creates games that get closer to the truth than they were hoping, and go on to slander that developer to save face. Furthermore, they hire a game studio to work on a VR game to further ridicule this developer and his supposed lies. Sometime after being employed, this game studio is sent a box of old scrap, which they are instructed to scan into the game. One of these things is a circuit board containing the Mimic programming, which takes the form of Glitchtrap in this game. This entity infiltrates the mind of Jeremy, leading to his descent into a reclusive state and ultimate death, or at least injury. As I said before, our mask may have been involved here, or maybe that mask was actually just his face. Tape Girl then goes on to document all these events in secret logs, which soon become the home to the anomaly she is now facing herself. given instruction either by the mimic itself or the tape girl under a terrible sense of naivety, our player reconstructs this anomaly which overtakes our body. Having no other choice, we make a mask to honor this being and become a reluctant follower of its bidding. And that's really it for now. I may have missed some tiny details here and then. Going forward, this is just about everything we need. Do let me know if I missed anything important, and I'll be sure to amend with the next video of this series. I don't know when that will be, but that will likely be a pit stop to the now defunct AR game, and the secret lore it has in store. In the meantime, keep a lookout for the updates I have on my game Power Crisis, which I hope to have more to show for soon enough. With that aside, I'll see you all next time.